You are now tuned in to the Security Guard channel and Security Guard Radio with your host, Atypical Security Guard. It's time to set the standard, bridge the gap, and be great.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, coming to you today from the Security Guard channel with the Security Guard Radio broadcast. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you're getting any value or benefit from the content that we're uploading, please like, share, and subscribe. I cannot have this channel without you guys. And also, keep in mind that everything that we're doing here is to help educate, motivate, train, and inform new and entry-level security guards. Guys, I've said this so many times. If you're a seasoned veteran, if you've been doing this for a while, if you're comfortable and confident with everything that you're doing in the security industry, you're welcome here. But this is so important to kind of help change the narrative around security and make sure that these new officers that are coming in, very similar to myself a couple of years ago, have information that can help set them on the right path. If we do that, we can help to create better guards, more proficient guards, more professional guards. And at the end of the day, that's going to benefit all of us by helping us to make more money. So, guys, let's get right into it. We are all aware of the recent shooting that happened in Buffalo. And more than anything, I think that this topic has kind of hit home. There was a security guard that was working that location. It's a grocery store. I, too, work in a grocery store, a corporate grocery store. And seeing that guard lose his life, it brings home how dangerous our job is. And the fact that these kind of things, they do happen unexpectedly. But if we think about all of the things that could potentially happen, all the things that could go wrong, and whether or not we're going to engage that potential active shooter, I think if we have these conversations early, it can help mitigate some of the problems on the back end. So I put up a post the other day asking, if you were at work and you heard that firecracker sound, would you engage that active shooter? Would you actually get involved, much like the security guard did, and try and take this guy down? I got a lot of different answers, but one of the most common answers was that, yes, I am going to engage this person. I don't care what the policy says. I don't care what the law is. I'm there. I'm going to make sure that I do every single thing that I can to make sure that I help people. I'm not going to leave people out there to die. Guys, I get it. I get it. If you're working in security more than, your average person, you're probably considering yourself to be a sheepdog. A sheepdog is a protector, someone that runs into the fire as opposed to away from the fire. I get that. But this entire, YouTube channel is set up to have these conversations, to create this dialogue, because I want you guys to think about these things well before the situation happens. I'm not here to dissuade you, try and change your mind, change your opinion. Each one of us is going to have to live with the consequences of either doing something or not doing something in that situation. And I want to be very, very clear. There are consequences for not acting. As much as I can come on here and I can tell you guys why you should not engage an active shooter, and personally, I don't know if I would or wouldn't, there are consequences to not acting. You can see the situation that happened in Newtown. I believe that's down in Florida, where you had the school shooting, and the security guard, who was I believe, retired or soon to be retired sheriff's deputy, chose to not get involved, and he was lambasted. He was fired. They took away his pension, and he was run through the ringer in the media. I think that ultimately he appealed that and got some of that stuff back, but his name, his legacy, how the community down there views him, it's not very good. And you saw that also happen in New York City, where you had two security guards that were working at a hotel. Their post order specifically told them to not get involved. And this is, last year when you had a huge uptick in Asian hate crimes, and they allowed and watched as an elderly woman was beaten right outside the door. They did not get involved. And the mayor and the governor and, the people in the area, they ran these two people out of town. Not only did they lose their job, but they were just completely roasted in the media. So Before we get into some of the things that I want to talk about in terms of thinking about whether or not you're going to get involved, I do want to be very clear and transparent in saying that by not acting, you also run the risk of getting in trouble. Not only that, but having on your conscience that you were potentially able to stop someone from hurting someone or killing someone, and you didn't. So I want to be very transparent in the fact that that is also an option, and you have to take that into account. But today we're going to talk about 5 things that I just want you to think about in terms of if you're going to engage an active shooter. Now, I have personally not had to engage an active shooter. In all of my time in law enforcement and security in the military, I've drawn my weapon twice. I've been very, very lucky to never be involved in a firefight. I hope to never be involved in a firefight. But when I give you this information today, this is just my opinion and kind of the 5 things that I've personally have thought about. And I'm just offering this up for you to also kind of decide if this is something that you want to do, because listen, you don't want to have to make that decision in the moment. Okay. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with number 1. Number 1 is to know the law, right? You need to be very aware of what the law is in your area. I live in Portland. Portland is a very unique place with a very unique view on good, bad, right, wrong. I'm not here to get into the political conversation, but regardless of that, wherever you live, you need to understand what the law says about you getting involved, even as a security guard and even as a private citizen. What is your responsibility? Duty to act, no duty to act. What is the law on endangerment? It's not like in the movies when you watch John Wick and he shoots off 175 rounds and he hits the guy 5 times. Those other 165 rounds went somewhere. And guys, in real life, each round that comes from your firearm, there's liability attached to it, right? There was a situation last year that happened at a Burlington coat factory in California where there wasn't an active shooter, but there was a guy that was mentally ill. He was beating people over the head with a bike chain and a lock. And the cops come in, and one of the officers fired on this guy. I think he actually hit the guy, but had over penetration that went through a wall, and it struck a 14-year-old girl who was in a changing room, and it killed her, right? If you're in a situation where that happens, you have over penetration of a round, you hit an innocent bystander, what is going to be your civil and your legal liability with that? So understand that, figure that out, know that going in, the laws of not only, just in general, but specific to your state, your city, and your being involved. Number 2, you need to know your policy. And guys, this is important because if you get involved in anything, but specifically something as nationally talked about as a mass shooting, you need to know what the policies are for the post that you're working. Are you even authorized to get involved? Now, a lot of you take the stance that, listen, if I get involved and somehow that causes me to lose my job, then so be it. I'm not going to allow people to get hurt, get harmed, get killed. I get that. But at the end of the day, the liability in terms of paying for your defense, if something were to go to court, again, that liability of potentially harming an innocent bystander or doing damage, all of that. If you're not covered under the policy, the fee for all of that is going to fall on you. And again, guys, we've talked about a criminal attorney here in Portland, anywhere from $150 to $350 per hour. Imagine the amount of time it would take to litigate something like that, and if you're able to afford that. So know what your policy is in terms of you getting involved in something like that. Number 3 is to have a plan. And when I say have a plan, that's a 2-part thing. Number 1, if you're going to engage, know what you're going to do, know how you're going to do this. But aside from that, the second part of that is to have a plan for your after action, right? I've sat down with my wife and I've gone over who my preferred attorney is. I've gone over The amount of time, if I am not home and I haven't made contact with her after a certain point in time that I'm supposed to be home, who is she to contact? What's the phone tree situation, right? I have all of this set up beforehand in case I'm ever involved in an officer-involved shooting, or if I'm ever in a situation where, God forbid, I'm in a car wreck or I get mugged or anything. But I've set up an after-action plan, right? Your after-action plan should also include things like locking your social media accounts or even deleting social media accounts. And you have to do this thing and think about this, because everything that you ever say or post or comment on or like could be used against you guys. So you have to think about the little nuanced things like that, about what you're going to do if you're ever in that situation, and how your family is to respond, who they're to contact, what they're to do, if you have money set up for an attorney, all of that. Plan that out well in advance. Number 4 comes down to tactics. If you choose to get involved, if you choose to actually engage, are you trained well enough to do this? Can you make that 10-yard shot, that 15-yard shot? Can you hit the person, center mass? If they're wearing body armor, are you tactically able to take out the pelvic girdle? These are all things that you have to think about, and not just think about them, but train for them. Are you hitting the range every week? Are you doing magazine swaps and dry fire? Are you physically fit? Are you physically fit enough to sprint and run around the building to be able to flank this person? All of these things are things that you need to think about, because in the moment, you don't want to be in a situation where you're gassed or you're nervous or you're fumbling, because seconds matter, guys. Seconds matter. So make sure that you're thinking about the tactics of actually engaging somebody in this situation. And last but not least, and definitely the most important, if you're going to make the decision to engage somebody in the situation like an active shooter, have you come to terms with the possibility that you might lose your life? And it's easy for us to say yes. It's easy for us to say yes now. But you need to think about the potential for your family to not have you, for you to never see your kids grow up, for you to not be at your children's wedding, to never get to meet or know your grandkids. Is helping the people at that grocery store or that bank or that location, is that important enough for you to give up and potentially lose what you might lose? I can't answer that for you. That's a question that you have to ask yourself, a conversation that you need to have with yourself, and also a conversation that you need to have with your family. If you decide that that's what you're going to do, have that conversation with your family. Make sure that they understand how much you love them, why you're taking this step, why it's so important for you to be that protector, that sheepdog, so that when you're in that situation, you're not freezing up and you don't have any regrets. All of this information that I'm giving you guys, my personal opinion, I would love to hear what you think about this, what your, after action plan, your training, all of that. Share that information in the comments below, because other officers are going to see this. They're going to hear this. They're going to read this. And I want everyone to share your information so that everybody can be well informed and make the best decision for them. At the end of the day, guys, I want you to make sure that you're safe, that you're doing everything you can to put yourself in the best situation. I want you to always watch your six, and I want you to be great, okay? Be great.